Hey everybody, how you? Welcome to Rainmaker 201 podcast. Hope you're having a great day. I've got a special guest with us, Tom Sarosi. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Sarosi.
Sarosi.
Okay, I hate mispronouncing people's names, Tom. And really excited about having Tom on. Tom saw the live course I did, probably the second or third one I did for MadLab up in Vancouver. And we were smashed into like a little back room. There was like 25 people in there.
Yeah.
Had to kind of jerry rig all my audio visual stuff up front, but
that's how we roll.
But we pulled it off. Yeah, we got it done. So that was a lot of fun. It was great being up in Vancouver, my first time in Vancouver. So beautiful city. So Tom, just quickly introduce yourself. What you're up to? How long you've been in practice? How things are going in general?
Yeah. So as Patty stated, my name's Tom. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. I am in now. I just started my 7th year in the coaching. I started full time in 2016, but prior to that, I was coaching with something else on the side just to try and make some money. But long story short, I am an associate coach at MadLab School of Fitness in Vancouver, BC.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. I know you've done some, I think you've done some other podcasts too, talking about some of the programming you do and some of the ways you structure your classes. Is that right?
Yeah, there's been some other stuff that the group has been shared based on just sort of the practices that we have here at the MadLab School of Fitness, if you will. The school is often, it's just referred to, just in how it's like just a little bit different than maybe your classic WOD or daily workout, however you want to label it. But yeah, there's been some other stuff out there, sort of like how I was able to take sort of the norm and apply it, or not the norm and make it the norm, I should say.
There we go. Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, that's what we're searching for constantly. It's one of the things I appreciate about what MadLab's doing. It's always looking for best practices. What's working, what's not working, fix what's not working or get rid of it. And try to find really what works the best, which, isn't necessarily totally homogenous across every gym. Sometimes you've got to modify a little bit based on your culture and what you're doing, what equipment you have, right?
100%.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about and have you share with the listeners is your experience with the live Rainmaker 201 course. It was known as, I think, enrollment and professional communication training, something like that back in the day. Now that we are so far advanced. And I remember going in, Patty even warning me, saying, I got this guy, Tom, he's one of my coaches. He's got tons of potential. Man, you don't want to sell. He hates selling. You don't want nothing to do with it. Right. And we had a couple of fun exchanges in the course. And so I wonder if you just share with some of the younger coaches or some of the coaches who, are still trying to figure out how to build their practices and make, good living, and how you felt about sales and maybe how your mind has changed over time and just along those lines.
Yeah. For me, at the start of the course, it was very much like Patty saying, this is not a request. This is mandatory, which at the time was like a little bit of a sour thing, but whatever, like he has that right. And at the start of it, it was, I don't know how to describe it, because it wasn't that I was uncomfortable. I don't think quote unquote selling is the right word, but I was uncomfortable playing. And again, I don't even I was like playing the game or finding out the information I wasn't good at finding out information, basically is the right way to describe it. I was good at being like, here's the product, here's what it costs. Do you want to do it? But that's not going to sell every single person who walks in the door. So I think what I learned most from the course was just that there's a process to asking questions, and there's a process to finding answers. And the more questions you ask and the more answers you find, the more information you're going to have. And with more information just gives you, as the coach, as the salesperson, a better opportunity to decide whether or not, A, this person is somebody that you're interested in working with, and B, finding out whether or not they're somebody that's interested in working with you. Because the day, the whole idea of doing an interview process right away I loved it, in the sense that, like, long ago we would just do okay, this is the sales transaction. Now we perform physical tests. Now it's way better because I can allot way more time to asking questions, way more time to finding out answers, and way more time to figuring out what this person is really looking for. Because at the end of the day, like, everyone's going to be a little bit different, and what they want and what they think they need and how they're going to get there is, you know, they might have these preconceived ideas, but the more questions that I ask, the easier I can find out why exactly, you know, Bill is sitting in front of me and how I can help Bill. So the idea of, just finding out more information and finding out more useful information was what I definitely took most away from that course.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a tough transition from that, what we call that retail clerk mode, right? Here's the product, here's its color, here's its shape, here's how it smells. It's $50. You want it or not, right?
Right.
And, that's really not what we're doing here. This is professional, high quality service interactions. We're charging top dollar for that. And if you want a professional relationship with somebody, the retail clerk mode isn't really gonna cut it. I love what you said too in terms of, you know, really just sitting down with someone and using the word interview. I hate that word sales. I still use it only because it kind of frames the
Right.
thing we're doing now, you know, but it really is just an interview. And this idea of not just you discovering, you know, what they really need so you can connect that to how you service them and have a relationship with them, but letting them maybe talk out loud for the first time with somebody about what they really want.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to describe it, like a retail clerk. And prior to taking this, I definitely was only of the mindset of selling a fitness service versus like a professional relationship service. And it took me some practice to wrap my head around that and get good at it. But now, I mean, I'm incredibly confident whenever I meet somebody for the first time and that I'm going to be concise with how I want to get to where I want to get to, or how I'm going to help that person get to where they want to get to. The idea of, again, selling is just one of those things that the idea is, for me, what I took away from it too is just like an exchange of service. Like, I use this like joke at the summit, but like, I have a lot of like sweatshirts that are worth too much money. I'm willing to buy that because I know that it's valuable and I want it. People are always going to be wanting to buy things. Like, that's just the way it is. Sometimes they need to be told that what they want to buy is actually good for them. And that just comes down to like being able to provide that information versus saying, well, you should buy this because I told you to. Well, that's not a great idea. Like, even if you were talking about you go into the change room trying a sweater come out, was the first person, nobody who ever works there goes, oh, that doesn't look so good on you. You know, that's just like, yes, they're in a different sales position, but the idea is finding a way to make that person feel good in a position where you are trying to get them to spend money. Because that happens to me, that happens to you, and that happens to every single person who watches this. And just being okay that like, that's kind of how it works. Like, if I could trade, like, you know, back in the day, it was like, you give me a bag of rice and I'll give you some training. Great. But that's just not how the world works anymore.
Nope. Got to get some money. Got to get the check. Got to get the cash. That's the vehicle through which values exchange, right? And so that's just, I agree with you. That's the way it is. So you might as well learn how to do it and get comfortable doing it, and realizing that once you are, then you can meet a perfect stranger and have a conversation, figuring out what they want and they really need, and go from there. Because really, it comes down to a decision, right? We're trying to help them make a decision. We're trying to figure out ourselves about whether or not this relationship works going forward. I mean, do you think it's helped you in terms of the quality of your practice, which is primarily defined by the professional relationships you have with your clients, versus just the quantity approach of grind them out, get the numbers, and if the churn's high, the churn's high, right?
100%. Like, try and keep churn as low as possible. But in that sense, like, I think you mentioned it there, like getting that person that I'm meeting for the first time to make a decision. But for me, it's more about my decision. Like, I'm pretty upfront with somebody when I meet them for the first time and say, hey, you know what, this is as much for you as it is for me. Like, maybe you don't like me, that's okay. Maybe I don't feel like you're a good fit for what we offer here, and that's okay too. The idea is find out whether or not we can help each other, and then we'll exchange money. I don't want your money until I know I can help you. And I think just saying something like that gives people the idea that, like, oh, I'm actually not being sold something. We're actually doing due diligence. So, and in turn with that, it's easy then to say, hey, this is the kind of commitment level or buy-in or, investment that I'm looking for the long term, for the next XYZ, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 3 months, whatever it is that we kind of decide we can commit to. And then from there, it's easier to be like, well, this is, remember what that first conversation was we talked about? Like, the idea is I'm going to help you get to where you want to get to. So try not to get off the rails too much, because now they're like, right, I'm paying Tom to be my coach. I'm not paying Tom to give me a workout.
Right.
So now it's easier to say, hey, fall back on that initial conversation where it's like, you and I agreed to mutually go down this avenue together. I feel like you're kind of starting to, veer off the road a little bit. Let's just get you back into the right lane. And it's easier to have that conversation when the client's been sold a lane rather than a highway, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, I call it the Pez dispenser trainer, right? The one who just got a bunch of names of exercises and different colors and flavors, and they just dispense them, a few times a week to a bunch of people, and the people come and eat the Pez and they leave. And that's not really a professional coaching relationship. That's just an exercise dispenser, right? You're like a kiosk that they come up to and ask a question, you give an answer, and it's over. And so has it helped you, in managing the client and deciding really how the programming goes forward, once you understand why they're there, what they're doing there, and then underneath, when someone says, I want to lose weight, that really that's superficial. Right. Getting deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it did, again, as we mentioned, about 10 minutes ago at the start of this, every gym is going to have sort of their own bias towards how they're administering fitness and how they're programming it, and what their biases are, I guess, or what their niche might be. Sure. But the idea being is you can sort of still encompass everything for everybody, in the sense that what most people need to do is generally kind of the same idea. So then it's easier for me now, inside of my first meeting with the client, to be like, look, most of the people who go here are kind of in the same category. We don't have the people who are trying to be the best fitness sizers in the history of the world. Most people here want to look a little bit better naked. They maybe want to hike faster. They want to play with their kids a little bit more. So when you're coming here, you have to know that, hey, that's kind of where our direction is going. And the people that you're going to be working out with, should you be in a group class setting, are people who have very similar goals to yourself. So from there, how do you feel now knowing that, versus thinking, hey, this is too hard, too intense, too fast, too crazy for me? So then it's easy to be like, oh, well, all these other people have the same goal. I have that goal. If those people are here, well, they must be getting what they want out of it. And then from there, it's easy to say, hey, well, I got this buy-in from this person for these reasons. I think if you give me the same buy-in, I'll be able to give you what that person got.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, that once the members start meeting and talking to each other in class, they're telling each other their own experiences and what they like and what they don't like and why they're there. And so, yeah, that's a key point too, is you're kind of building your internal culture, one relationship at a time, with that frame and that reference, which is tough. I just wrote an article in the Medical Fitness Network, a blog about, the idea of athletics and sports and exercise being this high-end elite sport fitness event, right? Which is scary for a lot of people. Not that it's not great for some who are very competitive and they love the competition side, but the vast majority of the population is not interested in becoming a high-end athlete at 55 years old, right? And getting crushed.
And that comes down to, again, like using the term why. Like, why is it important that you do X, Y, and Z? Well, just because I saw it on YouTube. Well, okay. The conversation about, like, why that why isn't realistic or valuable, right? At the end of the day, it's easy for me to sit down with somebody who I'm meeting for the first time and be like, how many hours can you realistically give me in a week? 3 or 4? Okay. 3 or 4 is not taking you from this position where you're at to an elite level athlete. 3 or 4 is going to, you're going to feel better. You're going to get stronger. You know, your life's just going to generally improve. And it sounds to me, generally speaking, based on the conversation we've had, that you're just kind of looking to enjoy your life more. Is that true or not? Yes, that's true. Okay. Now it's easy to be. This is why we don't need to worry about upside down push-ups.
Right. Right. And kips, right. And muscle ups and
right.
Yeah. Very complicated gymnastic maneuvers, right? So impressive to watch. So what were some of the favorite strategies and tactics that you took away that you find yourself employing regularly to try to get, you know, again, what's a very difficult challenge is to really make a connection with a strange person in a pretty short period of time, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is build a level of trust that's authentic in a pretty tight time window.
Yeah. For me, I think one of the biggest things I took away was like first contact. I came up with like a moderately, I don't want to say generic, but kind of like a thoroughly worded email that says, hey, I'm, glad you reached out to us. Curious to know about your inquiry at our gym. I'd love to schedule a phone call to answer any questions that you might have. And from there, I generally will try to avoid answering any questions via email, because it's like, it makes it sound like I don't have the time to sit down and just email with you over and over and over. I need a scheduled time for a scheduled phone call, because that's how condensed my schedule is.
Mm-hmm. So time's important, right? Yep.
Time is important. And if I can make it clear that my time is valuable enough that I'm not going to just randomly call you, or I'm just not going to randomly email you back, I think, A, that sets the tone for something. 2, as soon as I do get them on the phone, right away, it's, how did you come across us, and why now? That's one of the biggest questions I think that I've got success with, is just like, why October 8th of this year? Like, why not 2 weeks ago? Why not 2 weeks from now? Like, what's made you reach out when you did? And then from there, being able to kind of make that person feel comfortable about why they're telling me, or what they're telling me about their personal life, or maybe they had some illness or family crisis or whatever it is, that was like, oh, I realized like I need to get my health in order. From there, on the phone, always say, if you're not able to make it at the time we committed to make it, let me know. If not, then this isn't probably going to work, because again, my time is very, very valuable. So if you're
setting those rules, right? Setting up those rules is critical, right?
If you're not we're going to meet Wednesday at 5 p.m. If Wednesday at 5:10, you're not here, I'm assuming you're not coming. If you don't show up, period, because obviously traffic and things, maybe show up at 5:15 or whatever, that's fine. I understand there's exceptions to most rules. But if there's no notice, then I'm assuming then there's going to be no notice moving forward. And I just don't have time for that. And then, generally speaking, when I do meet them for the first time, talk about sort of the same things we talked about on the phone. I'm really sorry. I kind of forget why we're having this conversation again. What brought you in? What are you hesitant about? Basically trying to find out, like, and then asking the why question as to, I kind of want to lose weight. Well, is there any particular reason, like, you feel like that's an important thing for you? And then again, the whys and the whys and the whys. I'm not going to spend too much here, because we could go off on a huge tangent with that. But then at the end of the session, basically being like, okay, this is what we have to offer. This is kind of how I think it's going to mesh with what you're looking for. The next step is for us to commit to a schedule. Generally, for me, it's 3 PTs. It's important that you pay before we meet again, because without that financial commitment, unfortunately, we can't continue. So being like, I'm not giving you candy, as you would label it as, or my skill set or my talent or whatever you want to call it, really, until I've been paid, which is kind of a big shift versus what the norm was around the school 5 years ago. Now it's pretty much standardized like that. But 5 years ago, it was, okay, well, if you're kind of on the fence, like, let's work out a little bit, and then maybe you'll want to buy my service.
I'll win you over with my winning personality, right, in the exercise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just eliminating that and then getting better at being like, well, I need money before I show you how to do what it is that we're going to do.
Absolutely. So, you know, that's your skill, right? It's your valuable experience and knowledge. And to give that away willy-nilly really decreases your professional standing and your value. Absolutely. So, well, it certainly sounds like, you know, you've got everything dialed in well, Tom. I'm so happy for you, and I'm glad that you're having a great career and doing what you want to do, and, you know, making some money and have some great relationships. Any final words for any of the listeners out here about kind of this being a coach and being a salesperson thing? Anything that you'd like to share, and we'll wrap up?
The last thing I would just say is that it's not wrong to understand economics and human behavior, because there's other people out there who understand that too. So the idea being is, if you feel bad about what you're offering somebody, that's probably a bigger reflection of yourself and your self-worth, which is something that you need to look at as a person and as a coach, which in turn should go hand in hand, but should also be separate. Before you are going to be really comfortable selling something or getting a high product value from something, you're going to have to basically be like, am I worth what I'm selling? And that's a whole separate conversation. We could go off on a whole other tangent about that.
The identity role thing, right? Yep.
Just because somebody doesn't want to pay you to teach them fitness doesn't mean they don't like you. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean anything like that. And if you're constantly taking those things personally, you're in for a rough, bumpy road. So being able to separate, again, identity, role, when are those things going to merge, and when are they going to be separate? Because again, that's you know, it's easier now for me to sit in front of somebody and be like, I just don't think this is necessarily the best fit for you. That doesn't hurt my feelings, because my role in that position is to say, I either think this is going to work for you or it's not. If my identity was speaking through, it might be like, well, I don't want this person to think I don't like them, but professionally, the role is not that. It's not that. So being able to sort of be conscious of those is sort of the first step, I would think. I think that might be one of the first things you talk about in this course. I can't recall.
And all day one, right? Trying to hammer that point home. Yep.
And then from there, if you understand the role is to provide a professional service, then you'd be more comfortable selling that service. Excellent.
Well, thanks, Tom. I certainly appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully folks will take your advice and follow your lead, because you're doing a great job. Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no sweat. Thank you.
All right, buddy. See you.
Bye.